Wade is guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up with the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Syndicate members, what is going on, man? It's time to wake up because it's Winning on Wednesday. We are live from Austin, Texas, right here at Syndicate headquarters. Me and the king of trucking, the king of Facebook groups, the Jolly Ginger Giant. He's standing up today. Joseph Kampert. What is happening?
Dude, you're looking at it, man. It's hilarious. I literally just heard you through my headphone through the office because of how loud that was. And that's how hype it's about to get. So I love that. I love you bringing the energy. Man, I'm doing amazing. What's up, Syndicate? Hope everybody's having an amazing week. And again, it's Wednesday, right? We're just here to throw a little gas on the fire. Let's power through. It's the peak of the week. And real quick, too, before, just like how we got Alex up on the show, make sure and let StreamYard view your comments. It is in the description above. And we're super excited to have you guys on. Thank you guys so much. We've got a really cool training. Some of y'all, and again, if you guys have gone through House of Dreams with me before, stay with me, right? Because the goal is, even though we do it one time, I can't tell you how many hundreds of times we've gone through this framework. And then we're going to have Tony kind of build in some of his 6 traits and other things that he finds to really build into this, what we call a framework of success. So we're super excited. So hang in there with us. While we got to go through our weekly wins, I do want you to get a piece of paper, right? Get something, right? Because there is going to be some imagery. I'm going to get up on the whiteboard. That's why I'm standing up today. And I want you guys to write it down. Really get it up here. Okay. So as we're kind of going through the weekly wins, go get something to write on. Go get something to draw with or draw on as well. And we'll get into it. Weekly win. I told her I would do it. I don't know if this is just a thing where I have to like share my not weekly win too, man. Tony.
Weekly loss? We're not doing weekly losses.
I know. I just struck out, though. I have to be, like, vulnerable. I got freaking struck out in slow-pitch softball last night. So that's definitely not the weekly win. My weekly win is it is my lovely wife's birthday today. So if everybody could, in the comments, tag her. Her name is Maria. Happy birthday, babe. Love you. And hopefully we get to celebrate a little bit tonight. And so happy birthday. That's my weekly win. It's my wife's birthday.
Right on. Struck out in slow-pitch softball, you say?
Dude. It was so bad. Don't get me wrong. It was kind of a bullshit call, but whatever. I still didn't swing. I should have swung.
It's hard to hit in only 3 tries.
Yeah, something like that, Tony. What's going on in your world, man? How you doing? How's AEP?
AEP is off to a phenomenal start. We're doing our thing. We kind of switched gears a little bit this year, as some of y'all have heard. We're focusing mainly just on client retention for AEP. So we're not out there so much marketing to try to scoop up a whole bunch of new business during AP. We've got a great book. We just want to make sure we hang on to most of it. So we're really focused on client retention this year and then sticking with the T65 gravy train. So we're writing and constantly marketing to our turning 65 folks that are new to Medicare. Still got plenty of them coming in, and then just really focused on doing reviews for our current clients. Hey, make sure you like your plan. You're staying in the book. You're staying with Avila, and we can lock down those renewals. So that's the plan here, and we're doing a good job of it so far. Super happy. We brought on another VA to help us with that. So we now have a customer service VA that's on the back end doing all those customer service calls, getting those appointments set up so we can do the reviews and bang them out. So, but weekly win is a pretty simple one. You know, we don't always have to do big time on weekly win, but he got all the signage up for Insurance Syndicate headquarters. We got our sign out on the marquee. It's nice and simple. It took Joe and I a while to figure out what we wanted to do. Like, do we want to try to put our logos up there and have Avila and Redwood all on one sign? How do we fit that in and make it look aesthetically? And then we're like, do just one big word, insurance. And then right below that, some bullet points of what we do. So that's what we've got. Big marquee sign says insurance. And then it says personal, commercial, Medicare, which is everything we do inside here. So got all that up, got the door signage. Feels a little more official, right? But it feels good for sure. So that's
I still don't have
win.
anything on the doors, guys. I got the marquee just because Tony got it done. I don't have anything on the doors. It's like, hey, which suite are you guys? It's like, man, you're just gonna have to look it up on Google Maps, man, because we're rolling under the radar here at Syndicate HQ, aka Redwood. And awesome, man. Well, I love it. Real quick too, before we kind of get into House of Dreams, I think you had a really good point. And a lot of people are probably going freaking crazy right now in the AEP Medicare space, right? Obviously, somebody who's a veteran in the space, you've been doing it for years. What would you tell to an established agent, right? Who is, hey, it's easier or it's actually cheaper for me to keep a policy than it is to replace it. Maybe potentially. I'm not 100% sure on Medicare. Typically, that's how it works, right? But what piece of advice would you give to potentially an established agent that, hey, I'm trying to grow, but I also like they want the new business, but at the same time, they know that they need, but it's going to take away time from keeping their current book. What are maybe one or two things that you would just kind of suggest? Because again, I've talked with a lot of agents. I know it's crazy right now. You want to chase that new business, but as soon as you go you chase too much over here, then everything else is going out the back door. So what's a couple bits just for anybody that's going through AP right now?
I would say understand that no matter how good of an agent you think you are, no matter how loyal you think your clients are, don't fool yourself. There are 111,000 other people that are banging down phone lines to try to get to your client, whether it's through a text message, through a piece of mail, an ad on Facebook, a phone call, whatever it is, they are coming after your clients. And if you're not careful, they will succeed because they will find a way to pigeonhole their way in, find some little tidbit or something that they can do to get that client to flip. So don't fool yourself into believing like I'm Johnny Agent. Nobody's ever going to leave me. No, they will leave you in a heartbeat if you don't talk to them. So this is the most important time if you've got an established book of Medicare business and you want to keep it, because just like Joe said, it is cheaper to maintain business than it is to go market for new business. Call them, reach out to them, make sure you're in touch with them, let them know that you're already on top of it and that you have their best interest at heart when it comes to reviewing their Medicare plans. Because if you're not going to do it, somebody else 100% will. That would be my number one piece of advice. Like, just don't fool yourself into thinking that I'm Johnny Agent. My clients will never leave me because they love me, because they tell me they love me all the time. I've thought that for many times. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what happened? How did she just, she bailed? Like after all of that work, after all of that camaraderie and rapport, how did she split on me? Huh? I didn't pay her enough attention, apparently. So,
well, and speaking of that, right, if you guys haven't caught Tuesday training yesterday, if you are struggling with people going out the back door as soon as you bring them in, go ahead and check out MediZeus, which we just had. Evan was just on the call yesterday, Tuesday training. Go check that out. It's a new product that literally integrates into your CRM and will literally notify you within, I think it's like less than 24 hours, 24 hours maybe at the longest, when your people are trying to maybe potentially make a change, make a move.
Absolutely. So, the only thing that makes this business lucrative is the renewals, which means you have to keep your people on the books. So if you really focus on some client retention during AEP, there's a couple of things that you can do. Number one, you can make sure they stick with you. Number two, you can cross-market them for other products. Like, oh, cool, you're going to keep that Humana plan. Awesome. Let me show you some other things that I can help you with to tighten it up. So you can increase your lifetime value. That's the key that you need to learn. If you don't know what LTV is, that is the lifetime value of your client, right? So if you focus on some client retention during AEP instead of just going out there to market new business, you can increase your lifetime value of your entire book and therefore make a lot more cheddar. So that's our focus right now.
Love it. Love it, man. Good stuff. Well, as I'm getting ready to shift over here to the board, guys, Tony, I want you to lead with the story of the first time you saw me do House of Dreams. Can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely, man. We were in Springfield, Missouri. We were at a kind of a men's networking event with I think it was maybe about 23, 25 guys, something like that. And I flew out there, and it was the first time that I physically met Joe Kampert and his dad, Dave Kampert, a.k.a. Pops. And I'd known Joe virtually right? And I knew him through Facebook and everything. And then I get to the welcome party for this event, and I see his dad, Dave, who you can't miss because I think he's 6'6" or 6'8". The guy's an absolute tree of a human. So everybody's just, standing there looking at him, listening to him talk for a minute. And I chat with him for a minute. I'm like, hey, where are you from? And he's like, oh, I'm from Austin, Texas. I'm like, shit, I just flew in from Austin. He's like, yeah, we're actually in Cedar Park. I'm like, I'm in Cedar Park. This is amazing. And it's like, wow. And then so I walk on, and then Joe, same concept. Joe's 6'4", 6'5". So he's on the other side of the room, and everybody's standing around him, looking up at him, listening to him talk. And I walk up and I chat with him. I'm like, hey, I know you from Facebook, right? And he's like, yeah, Joe Kampert. And I'm like, cool. And I'm like, where are you at again? He's like, I'm in Austin. I'm in Cedar Park. I'm like, that dude Dave over there is also in Cedar Park. And he looks at me like, yeah, that's my dad, bro. That's my dad. And I'm like, oh, yeah, of course it is. 2 6-foot+ ginger-headed people. Of course that's your dad. So got to meet him then. And then we spent that event. Half of the day we were all coaching each other on things that we do in our business that help us succeed or do well. And then the other half of the day, we just had fun, played, and built relationships and had a good time. And that was the first time I saw House of Dreams, and I was super impressed with what I saw. And then immediately just talked to Joe about it later. And then again, we find out we're right here in Cedar Park, Texas, about 2 miles from each other. Fast forward today, now we share an office, and I get to hear House of Dreams pretty regularly when he teaches people it. So.
Isn't that crazy, man? Like, talk about a big, small world. That's I swear, and I find the biggest, smallest world within insurance, where it's like some of the people, even recently, shout out Kendi Wheeler. I don't know if she's in the group, but because I know this guy, Steve Stock, who's in Indiana, and he knows me, and we haven't ever done business together. We've just been on calls. He introduces me to Kendi because Kendi was asking something about marketing. Turns out Kendi lives 15 minutes from where I went to college before I dropped out to get into insurance. Turns out she knows Stephen Guilfoyle, who's doing Champ. We're doing biggest small, and I'm just out of Southern Indiana. Man, I was like, this is freaking crazy, man. And, again, I love this industry because of that. And it goes back to, guys, it's definitely a relationship business with our clients. We all know that, right? But it's also the same with us as agents, right? And that's obviously what we're trying to build here in the syndicate, and even take it outside of that Facebook group to get people in the room, right, to really network. And so House of Dreams, guys, Tony talked about it. It's something really near and dear to my heart because it's literally what we founded our agency on. And I think that's always my first point is when you get into this business, right? Whether you're established, whether you're going through AEP or not, having that mission statement and that why, and ultimately what we call the foundation of what we're doing in place before I start going, right? We've all heard it. Like, you don't ever just get out of the drive. Well, maybe you used to, right? But nowadays you don't typically go start driving somewhere without turning the GPS on, right? So really knowing, not necessarily, and I guess, well, part of it is knowing where you're going, but ultimately it's, why do I want to go there? And I think, again, this is kind of a framework to success is what we call it. It's kind of an accumulation of all the people and all the networks and the communities and things that I found that, man, this is what we truly find to be, we'll call it quote unquote successful life, but ultimately in that is happiness, right? In building this house of dreams. And it's not building somebody else's house of dreams. It's not maybe coming in and doing some contract work on this, or it is literally building your house of dreams, right? So I want, real quick, guys, if you guys went ahead, if you got like 30 more seconds, go ahead, get a piece of paper, get a pen. I want you guys to write all of this down because I want it in front of you, okay? I want it top of mind. So this is what we call our house of dreams, right? And so you're going to draw just in the middle. And I know you guys might not be able to see the actual board, well, especially not while I'm writing right now, but so you have just your little house right there in the middle, okay? And I'll give you a second to write that down or draw that. And in that middle, you got your little blurb, right? Your little cloud, your little bubble. And that is what we call that dream, right? And in your dreams are, it's hilarious because so many people associate dreams to like immaturity and children. And I'm like, dude, I still have dreams. I still want to dream, right? And I think especially when you're sitting in a leadership role, it's your responsibility to know what your people's, your agents' dreams are, right? And that's ultimately how you can tap into why they're doing what they're doing, right? But the dream is something that I truly believe everybody has inside of them, right? It's something that you just got this, man, I just got to do this, right? That doesn't necessarily need to be insurance, right? Or it's like, man, you just have this little thing. And I truly believe you were born with it, Sometimes it takes years to kind of unlock, like, okay, why am I on this earth type of thing, right? But that's ultimately kind of the point of having these conversations as well, is challenging people. What is that thing right here that is just driving you every single day? What is it that you really want out of this life, right? And again, so that's your dream, right? And that's the goal. We want to be building your dream, not something that, hey, I watched, on YouTube and I really want what that guy has, so I'm going to make that my dream. Dig deep. Really figure out what is it inside of you that you were called to do ultimately, right? What is your calling? So the dream is there, right? Maybe we figured it out. Maybe it's, shit, dude, I still don't really know what it is, but I think I might have just tapped into it a little bit. Now, what Tony talked about, you start getting into rooms, right? You start talking to other people. You get into this big, small world of insurance. And when you start having those conversations, right? Or you start watching a certain amount of videos or trainings or whatever it is, right? And on the side here is vision, right? You start to really cast a vision of what this dream is ultimately. Like really, what is it? And again, sometimes it's hilarious, right? We all know it. And if you have kids, you definitely know it. I could tell my kid the same thing 1,000 times and they'll still do it, right? But then I have like Austin come over and he says it and they listen right away. And it's just because dad didn't say it. It's the same thing, right? Sometimes it just takes that one book, that one podcast, that one conversation, that one networking event, whatever it is, to help really cast vision to what this thing is, right? And so once you start to cast the vision, now it's like, okay, and it's hilarious, right? I use a lot of imagery in this framework, guys. When you're building a house, right, you'll kind of see it, or even when you're driving by like a new build community or something, you see the house and it just looks like freaking nothing, right? Like it's just kind of just like a plot of land. As soon as those walls start to go up, though, right? As soon as the framing and everything starts to happen, you're like, holy shit, it's a house, right? And that's the vision, because now you can finally start to see, okay, what can this thing really be, right? Now, here's the crazy thing, and I put up here, I'm changing it a little bit just as far as for you guys to understand. The only thing that can really stop the build of this house, right? Again, what you really want it to be, not because, hey, here's the specifications of the neighborhood, right? Or whatever it is limiting beliefs, right? And so I put it on the roof because I see so many times, and Tony, I know that you've seen it, and feel free to kind of jump in on this, is that so many agents cap themselves due to limiting beliefs. They put the roof on the house before they're even halfway done because they're like, you know what? Let's just do it. Just put the roof on it. We're done, right? We're good. And now here's the thing. Not everybody has to be, I use this as an example. Not everybody has to be like a Cody Askins. He'll probably never put a freaking roof on. The dude has literally zero limiting beliefs. He wants a skyscraper with a helipad on top so that he can just fly around in a helicopter. That's great, right? But you don't have to make your house look like that. So, hey, you know what? When you cap your roof, just make sure that it's not due to a limiting belief. It's not due to what you think you are capable of. I think that's super, super important. But, hey, I want a one-story ranch on some land, and that's your dream. That's what this is. Dude, put the roof on, right? But just make sure you're not doing it because of a limiting belief, something that, again, a lot of the times we've believed these lies for so long about ourselves that they become truths, right? And I'm not going to kind of get into all the stories behind that, but I know talking about Pops, he tried to start an insurance agency back in State Farm back in 1999, 2000, brand new, small, Noblesville, Indiana, didn't know a freaking soul, never been an agent, internet wasn't really a thing. He's dialing the phone books. That agency ended up closing the doors after about a year, I'd say. Was losing the family because of the work hours and this and this. But literally up until even when we had started Redwood, he had this, again, like, man, I failed at that, right? And you guys hear me say this a lot, is that, man, it's not always the idea, right? Maybe it's just not the right time. And for him, it wasn't the right time, because obviously now we've got Redwood, right? And you guys obviously have seen the merger, and now he's going full. I mean, he can obviously run an insurance business, right? But I think for years he believed that, man, even coming into Redwood, he had this belief, this lie that he had believed for so long that became truth, that, hey, man, maybe I can't do this. And then ultimately it took getting into rooms with Tony, with Cody, with Pete, with Nate, with all these guys, right? Ron Ray, to really say, hey, you know what, dude, I'm thinking too small. Maybe I need to remove my roof and start building out again, right? And that's the other cool thing is, hey, maybe you have that. You can always get a new roof, right? Not on but if you're a client of mine, don't do it, all right? I don't need it on my loss ratios, okay? So here's kind of just the base here, but everybody knows, okay? So you got your dream, you have your vision. We're not allowing limiting the beliefs to bring us down. What's the most important part of a house? Type it in the comments. Tony, what's the most important part of the house?
Foundation.
The foundation. And the foundation, I know you guys can't see it very well, is discipline. Discipline, right? You can have the biggest dream and vision cast like crazy and have all kinds of crazy confidence like freaking Perry Lunsford, right? But if Perry Lunsford doesn't have discipline, none of that shit matters, right? You have to be disciplined in order for it to all work. Discipline is, hey, I'm tired. Hey, I freaking cut my finger. Hey, I was up late. I was up until like 1 o'clock last night because I was all amped up and I was tired, right? But discipline is like, hey, I'm going to be here, right? I'm going to get in when I say I was going to be in the office. And there's a few other pieces that will add to that because there's one thing to show up, which you need to be able to show up, right? But there's also a piece of, okay, when you show up, how are you when you show up, right? And we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. So again, you got your dreams, okay? And whatever that is. And again, maybe you still haven't found that yet. That's the point of these conversations. Let's really break it down. Let's figure out, like, especially again, in a leadership role, let me find out what my people really want in life, right? Because when I can tap into that, it helps me become that much of a better leader because I can go back to, hey, but remember why? Remember the why, right? And again, and it might not be completely figured out, but that's why we do this more than one time. Like we keep coming back to it. We keep coming back to it. And then you keep having these conversations. You keep going to 8% Nation. You keep going to SWAT. You keep going to whatever. You start to have that vision casted, right? We have no limiting beliefs. We're confident, especially when you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are the same, that, hey, you know what? I don't have any limiting beliefs. I can do this, right? And then ultimately I'm disciplined. Like Alexander Sala up at like freaking 4 a.m., 4:30 in the morning, every single freaking morning, even though maybe he was up until 1, hitting the gym, getting it going because he knows that's how he's going to start his day. So shout out to Alex. Good job, man. But the discipline is the big piece on that. Okay. So, Tony, if you want, maybe just take a few seconds to kind of break some of that down. And then I'm going to go into this next part. I'm just going to draw a little bit.
What do you want me to break down? Discipline?
What is it?
How important
what does
discipline
discipline look? Or what are some things that really maybe it happened in your business when you started having vision, right? Because obviously think about where you were last year to where you are now.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy difference, right?
Yeah. Discipline is the key to follow through on your vision, truthfully, right? You can create your vision that's there to grow your dreams. So like when it came to Avila, and there was a couple times I remember specifically where my vision was throttled by someone else's remarks or something that I picked up at an event.
Right.
But Grace and I, when we started creating this agency very early, and we had we were fortunate to truthfully be under the lockdowns during COVID in 2020. Like that was the birth of Avila. Right. And that was truly a blessing.
Isn't that a way to think of it?
Right. It was truly a blessing because it removed me from going to an office every day from now having to work in my home office, which was not a negative at all in my mind. And then Grace lost her job. So now we're trapped in this house together. And all of a sudden, wheels start turning, thoughts start happening. And she's like, well, I want to get involved in insurance. And we started doing some research, realized how big the Hispanic market is, what the opportunity is. And then every day for lunch, we would take a mile walk around the neighborhood and we would talk about our vision. That's all we would talk about. It was like, how big do we want this to look? What are we trying to accomplish? Is this just a side hustle to go make some extra scratch and another stream of income? Or is this something bigger? And every time we had that conversation, the dream got a little more magnified or the vision got a little bit bigger. And we realized that now we want to blow the doors off. We want to build something so big that when you think, if you're an Hispanic in the U.S. and you think insurance, you think Avila. And that is the goal, is to grow this into something that is absolutely monstrous. So the vision was set right at the front. And then now it's the discipline of constantly doing the work to follow through on that vision. And I can truly say that my partner in crime, and Gracia Avila Merwin, Grace, my wife, has amazing discipline. Amazing discipline. I've never seen someone work so hard as she does. She outworks me on a day-to-day basis. She's probably the hardest working person in this entire office. And if it wasn't for that, our vision would not be getting realized. Have we realized it 100%? Right. No, obviously not. But we are realizing it. We're building a big business. We're making a difference with people in Colombia. where we're actually, because that's part of our philosophy, is to earn American but spend Colombian. So now we have Colombian people that are working for us as VAs and so forth to help us grow our business. So that was a big part of the vision. It's like we want to be able to create something phenomenal here in the U.S. that serves the people here, but it creates opportunity and makes a difference in an area of the world that is near and dear to our hearts, and that where there's not a lot of opportunity. So seeing that start to come to fruition is incredibly rewarding, to say the least.
Well, didn't you guys hear it too? What did he do before even Avila kind of came about, right? He went through this. He really figured out what are we even trying to do with this thing? Now, again, you don't have to have everything perfect and put together, but again, he knew they had that mission statement. They knew where they wanted to go before they got going. So super consistent with what we're talking about, because are you really spending the time? And even maybe, hey, Tony's been in Medicare for 19 years now, but right, and Avila is like what, 2-3 years old. So even that, right, like he's got 15 years. He'd be like, let's just start up our own shop. I know how to do this shit. It's like, no, he really spent the time. And especially when you have a partner in the business, what do we want out of this, right? Because it's a relationship business. I love that you said that, and it's like a perfect segue into what we're doing, because as the vision is casting, right, and as the house is getting bigger and you're getting into the right rooms and meeting the right people, and hopefully, ultimately, that causes you to make more sales, right, and drive some more revenue and provide more opportunities in the States and outside of that, right? That's the best part about our industry, in my opinion. Literally, you can create opportunity anywhere in the world, which is so cool. But as you're doing that, I want you guys here real quick. I know you can't see it. Draw a little sailboat, okay? And I need to do my little waves. And no, that's not an island. It's not a hole for golf. It's a little sailboat, okay? You got your little flag on the top, your little mast on the top. And then ultimately, you've got this little thing on the bottom. It's kind of like a fin, right? And so you're going to draw that on the bottom. What's crazy is, anybody put in the comments if you know it's actually the most important part of a sailboat. Put in the comments if you actually know what that thing on the bottom of that sailboat is. It's this big, heavy thing. Looks kind of like a rudder. It's not a rudder. I know you guys might comment rudder. If you know what that is, put that in the comments. I want to see, because it's crazy how many times I've done this and how many people that I've spoken with. And I didn't know. Trust me, the only reason I know is because we started doing this thing. But it's the most important part of the sailboat, yet nobody even knows what it's called, which I love because it fits in perfect with what we're doing, okay? So you got your sailboat. This right here is called the keel, okay? The keel is basically, again, it's this huge, heavy mast, right? It's this thing that's attached to the bottom of the sailboat that ultimately keeps it upright. It keeps it from literally toppling over. And again, that's obvious. If anybody's ever been sailing, you're getting out there, you're kind of leaning, right? You're leaning. That keel is ultimately what's keeping you upright, keeping you in the water. Now, what's above the water, right? Again, what everybody sees and what everybody knows, it's the big mast, right? And the sailboats and everybody taking pictures, right? And they're on vacation. They're on these beautiful sailboats. That's your persona, right? That's, again, what is above the water. It's what everybody sees and knows. It's your skill set, right? It's kind of like, hey, what do you know Joe for? Well, at this point, everybody's like, well, Joe's the freaking insurance guy. That's just because, hey, organic social media marketing, it works, right? But ultimately, again, it's what everybody sees. And that's great. You need to have that, especially to be successful in insurance, but ultimately just in sales and in a relationship business, is you want people to see that. You want to be known, right? And you want people to see what you're good at. I mean, and you got to work on that, right? You got to be disciplined in order to really grow this persona. As the house grows, hopefully your persona is too, right? I'm a completely different person today than when Redwood Agency Group started almost 6 years ago, right? The persona has gone here, right? And I'll tell this story. I think a lot of people, this is kind of almost the easy part because you start making some money, right? You start doing some deals, right? As Tony says, do the deal, right? And the persona goes. But what's below the water is the most important piece, and that's what's called your character, right? It's the keel. The character is ultimately what keeps you upright. Hey, I could have the biggest mast, the biggest sails, all this stuff, as many people on that boat, but if I got shit character, right? If I'm taking shortcuts, if I'm writing the wrong pot, which I know obviously you guys are getting ready to go through or are going through AEP, there's a lot of agents out there that will do wrong by the client just to make $1, right? And so ultimately, again, the persona, we want that to grow. We want to be known, right? We want to become famous, we'll call it, right? Not necessarily famous. You guys get what I'm saying. But if we're not working on our character, there's no point, right? Because as soon as you untie from that dock, and I've seen it time and time again, I was going to tell a story. I'm not even going to get into the agencies. I'm sure you guys all probably have your own testimonies too, or personal experiences where you see these guys or girls, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, like the chief visionary officer. Oh, right. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this. And then once you kind of get into the organization and you see that, hey, the persona was super attractive, right? And it is to a lot of people, especially now in a digital world, that persona can take you far and hit a lot of timelines. But then you kind of get into the organization and you kind of meet them. You see how they're doing business, right? You see how maybe not, or how they're doing business, but also how they treat people and how they treat their agents, right? And clients, all that good stuff. Like, right? And literally it's so crazy because organizations like that, they'll go like crazy, right? But then as soon as they untie from the dock, as soon as that organization was like this, they untie from that dock, there's no keel, there's no character involved, whoop, right? They're sunk, they're out of the business. So that's super, super important, y'all. And again, this should always be growing and changing, right? But the goal is, hey, if my persona is going up, so does my character. You might be a really good person, but if nobody freaking knows it, right? Like that's the goal, is like we want people to know that. And ultimately we want those to be growing, but doing so in a congruent manner, right? Where they're alongside each other, growing alongside each other. But you can't forget that, right? And I think it's pretty easy to start getting that persona going. You go pretty quick, social media, you go viral, whatever it is, just never forget about what's in here, right? Which is in your heart, how you do business, how you treat people. I think that's super, super important. Okay. Anything to add on that, Tony, before I go over to the P's?
No, I love it.
Okay.
As a sailor, I love it.
He said, I love it. So this used to be the 3 P's. I was tired of doing the 3 P's because I kept adding the 4th one. So now it's the 4 P's, guys, which is also really cool about this framework is it's kind of evolved over time. Don't get me wrong. A lot of it has kind of remained the same, but when I've started doing it, like some of these words have changed. Like at one time, it's like when I had Laura, my first kid, it was like prayer was up there. I was like, pray for me, guys. You got to pray for me, right? But it's cool how, again, it's a framework, right? So kind of plug and play with where you're at in life. But again, this is kind of what we have found, right? So you got your 4 P's, okay? I'll write these down real quick and then I'll go over. Well, I'll go ahead and do it so you guys can write them down with me. First one is passion, okay? Second one is perseverance. Okay, so you got passion, perseverance. You got patience. Ooh, that's mine, guys. That is the 4th one that now it's kind of turned into 4 because I really have to work on my patience a lot of the times. Not in a bad way. It's not like I'm impatient with people, but like I am a go, and then it's like shit. I just burned myself on $5,000. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
See, that's the fun thing about working with you is because it always gives me an opportunity to practice my patience.
Is that how that works? I love that. So again, guys, we got passion, perseverance, patience, and then the last one, which is my Lord, it's perspective. It's so important, right? To really, and again, when I say exercise perspective, it's kind of like everybody knows comparison kills, right? And when you really start to exercise some of the perspective and understanding kind of the ins and outs and the whys behind some stuff, then it's like, oh shit, like maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was, right? And I'll share a little bit on that. But passion, right? It's our first one. Passion. If you, let's say again, maybe you have agents, right? Or maybe even yourself, and you're kind of walking into the office like this. And if it's okay if you're doing this, right? Maybe you've never had conversations like this, but ultimately it's like, if you're coming into the office like this, especially in an opportunity in industry like insurance, right? Where literally we can print money, damn near, right? Obviously in a good way, with character, right? If you're not passionate about it, it's because you haven't tapped into the dream, right? The dream is that's why we start here. Because if I know what this is, then insurance, we know. Now, insurance for me, again, you guys know this. I'm the guy that raises my hand in the conference. I've been wanting to be in insurance since I was in 2nd grade because that was what my dad was doing, blah, 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 right? Insurance is my passion because everything that I'm passionate about, I get to do in insurance. Therefore, I'm passionate about insurance. There's a lot of people that ain't passionate about insurance that are in insurance, right? Because they understand that, hey, maybe they have a passion elsewhere, right? There's this dream, but they do understand that insurance is the best vehicle to get them to whatever they are passionate about, which again is directly associated with that dream. So if you're kind of coming in, right, or if you have agents that are kind of coming in, they're right, not a lot of energy, whatever that is, that means maybe we need to help them tap into this. Maybe they've never had anybody come in and help them cast some vision, right? Or maybe we need to help them, replace some shingles, remove some limiting beliefs to help them see really what this is. Because when they have this, you'll never see somebody that's not passionate. That's why you guys see me freaking high energy all the freaking time, because I have this dream and it's directly associated to my passion. You got to be passionate about this business and not just about the business and what it can do for us, but what we're doing for other people. Like, we're literally like changing families, right? I mean, on the life insurance side, on the any side of it, you name it, right? A house burns down, I get to go cut somebody a check, right? Like, it literally changes families. What we're doing is so important. You need to be passionate about it, right? Now, this is the one that perseverance is our second one, okay? So again, guys, we got passion, then we got perseverance. Perseverance to me is it's very similar to discipline, but it's not. It's very similar though, right? Because discipline is getting there, right? It's, hey, I'm going to be in by 7:00. I'm going to be there, right? But then we kind of talked about like, okay, so I'm there. Don't get me wrong. It was a late night. My kids were up, whatever happened, right? I'm there. But how are you when you get there, right? Perseverance is, hey, I'm here and I'm going to put a smile on. I'm not going to walk in like this because I'm tired. I'm here. But then I'm like going to close my door and like, don't talk to me, right? Or like, I got to get my coffee. Right? Perseverance is still, hey, I'm here, I'm disciplined, but it's showing up and it's persevering through that tiredness, that whatever maybe happened yesterday or what even happened maybe on your way to work. It's persevering through that, right? To ultimately not let that ruin your day. And especially, again, in a leadership role, being able to persevere through those tough mornings, right? Through those tough nights, whatever it might look like. Anybody can get there. I think anybody can set an alarm. Right. And you can only hear that damn alarm so many times by the time your body just freaking wakes up. Right. So anybody, I think, can get there. Right. But ultimately, how are you? What are you doing when you do get there? If you're tired, if something again has happened. Right. We got to have perseverance in this business. I could keep going on things that we have to persevere through. Tony's in Medicare. They get like new regulations and changes. You guys get shit changing every single day. You got to persevere through that. Right.
Yes.
And AP, you got to persevere. Right? Like, a lot of people, they know it's AP, they're disciplined, they're in the office, but it's like, holy shit, I got to do this for how many more days? Right? It's crazy. Next bit, patience. So big on that one. Not to the point of where you never shoot, right? Because again, some people have so much patience, like they'll sit there and aim for so long that they never even pull the trigger. For me, I'm out here like, bah, bah, bah. Like I'm freaking firing, dude. I'm not even aiming, right? So I always have to work on my patience, which this is also another thing about, we'll talk about it down here, is having people in your corner, right? That, hey, you know what? I do struggle with the sign. I need to have people check me sometimes, right? Tony's got to come in. My dad's got to come in. Hanky's got to come. Yo, dude, whoa. Like, slow down. Think this through a little bit more, right? Before we keep going. Now, don't get me wrong. You need to be able to pull the trigger. But at the same time, we've got to practice patience in that. And, again, like I was trying to learn how to generate my own trucking leads. Well, actually, I wasn't. I was trying to figure out, all right, where the hell are these trucking leads? I got to find these trucking leads. Found a guy, and he was like, yeah, I got 200 preset trucking appointments, this, and this, and it's $5,000. And I'm thinking, okay, like, and the first 20 are like live transfer, like pre-booked appointments, like they're going to close. And I'm like, dude, I need to close 2 out of 200 in order to just make my money back, right? Never didn't vet anything, never met the guy, right? Had no proof of concept or proof of the pudding or anything, right? But what did I do? Trucking leads. I only need 2 out of 200. Hell, even if they're shit, I don't care. Let's go, right? $5,000. Anybody put in the comments how many leads you think I got? Put in the comments real quick. How many leads you guys think I got out of it? And $5,000, right? $5,000 up front. How many leads do you think I got? I want to see in the comments. Any guesses? Tony knows. There it is, Brian. Yep. The big old goose egg. I literally burned myself on $5,000 because guess what happened the next week, right? I'm in the trucking syndicate. Jeffrey Gordon. Actually, I don't know if you're in this group, Jeffrey, but you put it over there. If you go by Jeff, I don't know. Your name's Jeffrey on Facebook. But he put, hey man, check this out. And I go and I find this software. It's $1,000 a month, but it's unlimited data. It's unlimited list for new ventures and for carriers that for clients that already have insurance and all this. And then I found Eugene Marchenko. Shout out, trained telemarketers. My guy Rico Clark Toledo has been with us for he's been with us 11 months now. Dialing, like I'm talking, it's almost 1,000 leads and appointments that he's booked on us or booked for us through the software, right? So I go I spend the $5,000, I lose all of it. I don't get any sales. I literally just get burned on $5,000 because I'm not patient, right? And then the next week, I find a software, right? That's $1,000 a month that I have unlimited access to. I get a trained telemarketer through Eugene for $60 a week, plus your setup costs and stuff like that. I'm literally spending like $1,200 a month for unlimited trucking leads, and all I had to do was wait a week. So again, have some patience in that. Definitely do your homework too, right before you start pulling the trigger. I've learned that the hard way on multiple things. Sorry, Dad. I went up to him. I said, man, that $5,000's on me, dude. That's totally that's my fault. And then the last bit is perspective. Okay. Perspective is so important. I'll tell a quick story because I know we're running a little bit long, but I want to make sure we get through all of this with you guys. Perspective is, I don't really know how I was doing. I started Redwood. Tony, I'm sure you've gone through this, and maybe even with Go Ivula too. Man, how are we really doing? Right? It's a little bit different now because I think of these forums and these communities, like you can kind of pick up on how people are doing and what they're doing, how they're finding success. But I remember when Redwood started, like we were dead broke. I'm cold calling. I'm still selling like $50,000 a month off cold calls and personal lines out on the East Coast. Have no idea what I'm doing. Never been an independent broker, but I'm like, man, like, are we doing any good? Like, are we all right? Like, what is this? And we go out to this conference out, IAOA, the innovation conference, which haven't gone back to that. But that was out in San Diego right before COVID. And we go out, and Mike Fusco, if you're in this group, shout out to you because you really opened my eyes. You hurt me a little bit to start, but his name is Mike Fusco, and he gets up on stage, and he's been in business, I think, like 7 years or something like that. And I don't even know if I knew that he had been in business for 7 years. All I heard was, yeah, I've got a $28 million book. And I was just like, fuck. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? 28 million? I'm like, I think we're at like 500,000 on the year, you know? And I came back from that conference, like just defeated, really was just like, oh my gosh, man, Dad, like we suck, this, and this. Well, yeah, come to find out the guy's got a lot of capital. He's got 30 staff members. He's been in business for 7 years. He's got all the systems. He does like high-end commercial stuff, very well-rounded agency, amazing agency, right? But he was 7 years ahead of the road, right? And he had all this money. And I'm out here like, man, if I don't sell this policy, like we may not be able to pay rent, right? So again, exercising perspective of like, shout out to Mike Fusco, but like I wasn't there, right? Like that's not, I shouldn't have even been comparing myself to that or trying to hold myself to that standard. Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe that's a goal I can set for myself, but it really was so defeating because dude, yeah, you got 30 staff. I'm doing all my own sales and all my own service, and I'm just cold calling people because we're broke. It's going to look a little bit different, right? And again, I use that, guys, as encouragement. Really exercise perspective in anything that you're doing, especially when it comes to kind of measuring your business, your metrics, kind of where you're at, right? All that good stuff. Make sure you have perspective built into that. Tony, anything you'd like to share on that as I kind of build out this last bit here?
Perspective is huge, especially when you run into problems in your business. Because you ultimately will run into obstacles, problems, things that come up that you feel like, man, I can't solve. And your perspective is going to be the difference that gets you through that obstacle or that problem, right? If you're incredibly zoomed in on it and you're just focused on this problem, like, oh my God, I'm never going to solve this. This is terrible. Business sucks. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. It won't work. So you have to remove yourself from that hyper-focused zoom. You got to zoom out, look at your business from a bigger arc, see what's going on in your world, and you quickly generally will realize, wow, things aren't as bad as I'm making it out to be because of this one obstacle, this one problem. My business is actually moving really well. I'm making money. Things are happening. There's no reason for me to be freaking out and upset. And usually what that happens is that creates some mental space and some flexibility for you to now relook at that problem in a much better perspective. And usually you can be like, oh, duh, now I see how to fix it. But you couldn't see it when you were just sitting there staring at it right in the front of your face like that. You got to take a moment to change your perspective, zoom out, and look at the bigger picture going on around you in your world. Changes your perspective immediately, and usually you can find your way through that problem really quick.
Right. Yeah, you talked about that. You had something similar at 8% Virtual. You're talking about, hey, get your head out from under the hood. Look at the whole car, right? And then you can like, oh, shoot, it was just this, right? But I was so buried in that. I love that. That's so important. All right, guys. So we're on to our last two pieces here, and then we'll wrap up. I hope you guys are finding value. If you are finding value out of this, put value in the comments, please. Would love to see that. I love doing this, right? I don't care even if it's one person that's watching. I think this is just so important. It really is the foundation of how we started this thing. And I'm not tooting my horn or anything, guys, but we figured a few things out. And I credit a lot of it to really tapping into this as much as I can. And then look where we are, right? And doing the business that we are. So last bit here. They're little triangles. They're technically like teepees. And it's your tribe. Okay. So you got your little teepees and you got the word tribe with your circle around it. And we got a couple more components to this. But this, wow. If this ain't the most important thing, a lot of you guys know my backstory. I'm not going to bore you with it, but definitely don't have the cleanest rap sheet. Not anything freaking crazy, right? But I definitely was the problem child. I was the rebel. And what's crazy is parents hated to love me. They're like, God, like, dude, you are so respectful and such a nice kid, but like, you keep freaking getting arrested. And I was like, I know, man. But it was so much. Don't get me wrong. I own that, right? I was making bad choices, but so much of it was because of who I was associated with, right? Like it was literally those people that I thought, again, my boys, right? We grew up together. We've been together like since second grade, but they didn't have my back, man. I was like, man, you can't be my boy if we're literally sitting in jail together, right? Those types of things. Not every time, but you guys get my point. That who you have in your corner, right? Or Pops calls it your six, right? Like when you're getting ready to go 6 feet under, who are the 6 people that are going to be carrying your casket, right? Who are those people in your corner? And what I love about having the tribe and establishing the tribe, right? I talked with an older agent before, and she was actually like 70 years old, and she was starting a new agency and everything. And when we went through this, she was like, I've never had that in my life. And she's had a crazy backstory and family ridden with all kinds of stuff, right? Was raising her grandkids. She's like, I've never had, kind of these people that, hey, are going to celebrate with me, right? Are going to pick me up when I'm down. That, or maybe, hey, when I am down, they're not going to coddle me too much, right? And they're like, hey, pick it up. Come on, right? Or it's, hey, dude, you need to slow down, right? And what's cool about the tribe too is when you have somebody like that, like when Tony comes to me and speaks to me, I know that he's only speaking to me out of what he really genuinely cares about me, right? Or like what he really, what he thinks is best for me. So are you willing to receive that? And those are the people that you need in here, right? And we say it all the time, guys. What's one of my favorite lines? You can put that in the comments too. Hey, you want to run fast? Do it alone. You want to run far? Do it with others, right? But make sure you're doing it with the right people. Now, with the tribe, right? This is your inner circle. They always say, hey, keep your circle tight, right? And you should, right? You shouldn't have any and everybody freaking coming in and checking on you, pushing you, keeping you accountable, whatever it is, right? You need to have those core people that are actually going to make an impact in your life. You don't need to have 1,000 people doing that, right? But there's one more circle to that. Well, actually 2 more. And outside of that tribe, and again, I use the word tribe because when you think about a tribe, if everybody doesn't do their part, it doesn't work, right? And I love that. I love seeing that imagery in my mind where it's like they had these specific roles where, hey, you're all contributing members to the tribe, right? And so I think that's super important when you're looking at who's going to be in your corner, who's going to have your back, who's your 6. But outside of that is your network, right? Which you need to have that too. You need your tribe, but you definitely need the network. We all say it. What is it, Tony? Your network is your
net worth.
Net worth, right? You need to have that network of people. Like, so again, Cody Askins, right? Pete Fournier, that whole power player, Justin Brock, that whole power players event literally changed my entire network. The rooms and the conversations and the John Wetmore, Perry Lunsford, like the people that I was able to get in front of by going to conferences and events, Ryan Chickelli, like my Lord, right? Now, again, they're not necessarily somebody who's like in my day-to-day in the tribe, but your network is just as important too. You've got to have the right people in that circle because what's crazy is, hey, Tony started in my network too, right? That's where he started, right? When we were at that Power Players event. And ultimately, the last circle here, what's even funnier, now we didn't know this part, but it's your community. You got to be involved in your community. Community is so freaking important, man. Obviously, if you're in the life and health space, especially in the Medicare space, you should be deeply involved with your community, just because that's a big, I know, hey, grassroots marketing ain't dead, right? Shout out to Rebecca Davis. That what she does in her community is Barnett, like nobody's doing stuff like that, right? And I love what she does, like she rents out movie theaters and crap like that. But ultimately, it's giving back to the community. And once you get involved in the community, for me, softball, right? Like you can see, like my softball community, I've got staff. We're going to Worlds, right? I've got like sponsor deal, all this crazy stuff because I'm involved in that community, right? And I really like that community. But in that community, then you kind of can cipher out from the community. You get people in your network. So Tony was actually in my community. I didn't know it. And then we met at Power Players, right? So he was in my network. And then what do you know? After we've networked and stayed in that circle for so long, I really vibed with everything he was doing and who he is as a person, right? And likewise, now he's in the tribe, right? And things like that. So again, I think you need to have that encompassing circle of everything, but ultimately the tribe is what's most important. Who are you surrounding yourself with? We all know it, right? Is you are the company you keep. And if you're sitting there saying you're not, oh yeah, well, he's writing a bunch of shitty apps, he's doing this, like I'll never do it. I promise you, you be around it enough, you see it enough, you hear other people talking it about enough, you will start to do it yourself. So you really need to focus on that tribe, right? Now, all that. And Tony, do you want to add anything on that?
No, yeah, I think you're spot on with that.
Last bit here. Okay, guys, and then we'll wrap up. Last bit. The sum total, right, of all this. So we've tapped into, and I'll do it like this so you guys can't see it yet. So you've tapped into the dream, right? And maybe we've tapped into it. Maybe we haven't totally uncovered that yet. That's fine. That's why we're going to keep doing this House of Dreams framework until we can really, like, again, put some vision to that, right? And start really putting some walls to what this thing is, right? What we really have inside of us. So, but now we've got the vision, right? We met some people, we read a book, saw a podcast. We're very confident. We don't have any limiting beliefs that are capping us too early, right? Or causing us to build somebody else's house. That's not really our house of dreams. We're disciplined like crazy, right? Because all of this really doesn't matter if you ain't disciplined. You got it. That's why it's the foundation of the house. You have to be disciplined, especially in this industry, y'all. You've got your persona and your character, right? As that persona is growing, as your sailboat's getting bigger, you're catching more wind in the sails, right? That keel is right alongside it with your character, how you treat people, ultimately how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself. That's another important part of your character, right? Is like, just, hey, this is what's inside of me. Okay, you got your passion, your perseverance, your patience, your perspective, right? We're working on those 4 Ps. I've got the right people in my corner. I've got an awesome network of freaking agents or other like-minded business owners. I'm involved in my community. And you do this for, we'll call it, for the lack of a better term, you do that for a lifetime, right? The sum total of all of this, which is why are we even doing it? It's a big L, right? And that's not like a big L as in we lost. It's a big L as in your legacy. Everything that we're doing in here with this, right? The people, all this stuff, the sum total of that is our legacy. What are we leaving behind? And the reason I call it the framework to success, the most successful people, and Tony could probably attest to this as well, the most successful people I've ever been around or I've ever met, right? It is not about them. It is all about it's about other people. And that ultimately to me is that's your legacy, is what are you leaving behind, right? We talked about who's your 6, like who's going to be, when you're going 6 feet under, right? Who's going to be your 6 carrying? Do you even have 6 people carrying the coffin, right? Or hey, when somebody has to give a eulogy, is it one person that's got like maybe 2 nice things to say about Joe, and then there's like only maybe my mom or grandma's there, right? Just as family. Or is it I've got a line of people out that place to say the good things about Joe, right? To say the good things about our business. And you see it here, Redwood, right? I'm trying to be 100-year agency. Me and Justin Brock are very in line with that. It's like, dude, I'm trying 100 years from now, I still want to be impacting not only my family's life, right? But the biggest thing is impacting everybody else's. Anybody that's ever been associated with Redwood, man, I want their lives, again, 100 years from now, they're going to go back and be like, man, you remember when that crazy little fucker Joe, great grandpa Joe Kampert and David, started Redwood? And then what do you know, dude? And that's the crazy, there's an agency, I can't remember the agency name now, Crane and Tracy Bibb. If you're on here, you probably know them. They're in St. Louis. Dude, they're a 200-year agency, guys. 200 years. They started by ensuring the trade routes on the river. Like, freaking what? In 200 years later, that company is still rocking and rolling and paying paychecks, right? And changing lives and insuring people. And that to me is amazing, right? That you can literally go back 200 years on a single agency and they are still here, right? And that to me is the reason that they're still here 200 years later is because they have honed in on all of this. And it's like a well-oiled machine, because otherwise, again, it's like that sailboat with no character, right? That thing will topple right over. But to be around 200 years later, that to me, dude, that's a lasting legacy, right? And again, it's obviously we're talking about business and stuff, but it's so much more than just obviously running a 200-year business, right? It's like, man, to think about the amount of lives and families and agents and agencies that agency has changed over the last 200 years, like my freaking Lord. So again, all of that, guys, the sum total of it, right? And if you need to, real quick, go ahead and write down anything that you maybe missed. I know I talk a little quick, but it's all that sum total of your lasting legacy. What are you leaving behind? What are people going to say about Joe and Tony when we're going 6 feet under, right? So that is the house of dreams. That is what it is, guys. I do it with every single agent. It is the first thing that we do. We don't talk about money. We don't talk about anything. We literally do the house of dreams because I want to know what this is before we even start talking about what this industry can do for other people, right? Agents and clients as well. Okay. Tony, any kind of last bits on anything you want to chime in on?
There's nothing to add to it. You know, it's absolutely perfect. This was one of the things that impressed me about you and your dad, you know, when I met you guys, when I started to see that we were in a similar thought process, in a similar perspective, and in a similar lane. So I love it. And I appreciate you doing it again because I've been wanting to learn this so I can start talking about it to some of my new recruits and so forth. So thank you for packaging it up so nicely.
Absolutely. Anything for my syndicate members. So again, guys, happy Wednesday, right? Tony, go ahead and close us out, but I hope you guys find some value in that. Let me know if you have any questions. I do actually have like a whole, well, if you want me to do this with your team, I would also be happy to do that. So I've never really actually, I don't know where that came from, but I would be more than happy to, if you want me to hop on a call and go through some of this stuff with you or your team. Yeah, again, you and your team. I would be more than happy to do that. I'm actually getting ready to go do that in Beaumont, Texas, here in the next couple of weeks as well for a team that we're going to be consulting with. So let me know if you guys want me to. I'd be more than happy to. Tony, go ahead and take us out, my man.
Good stuff, Joe, man. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. We appreciate you. We're here every Wednesday. We do it live. It's the only way it goes. And if you got something you want to hear on the show, if you got a guest you want to hear on the show, if you got something you want to see on the show, just let us know. Hit me or Joe up via DM. Shoot our producer, Lily Davis, an email. Let her know with hey, man, I would like to see this guest. I would like to see someone talk about this topic, whatever it might be. We are open to suggestion. But other than that, man, we appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe because all this stuff gets pushed out to YouTube. And we are happening on Instagram and TikTok as well. Some great shorts that our producer Lily's putting out there. So if you haven't already followed us there, please do. Otherwise, have yourself a phenomenal week. It is the peak of the week. It is time to drive. Put the throttle down. Finish your week strong. And we'll see you next week. As always, happening on Wednesday. Thank you all.
Let's go. Tap into that dream, y'all, and build your house. Not anybody else's. Your house of dreams. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.